Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of NCompass Live. I am your host, Krista Porter, here at the Nebraska Library Commission. NCompass Live is the Commission's weekly webinar series where we cover a variety of topics that may be of interest to libraries. We broadcast the show live every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time, but if you're unable to join us on Wednesdays, that's fine. We do record the show as we are doing today, and it will be available for you later to watch at your convenience. And I will show you at the end of today's show where you can access all of our show recordings. Both the live show and the recordings are free and open to anyone to watch. So please do share with your friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, anyone you think might be interested in any of the topics we have on NCompass Live. For those of you who are not from Nebraska, the Nebraska Library Commission is the state agency for libraries. So similar to your whatever state library. So we provide resources and databases and training and consulting and grants to all types of libraries in the state. So you will find shows on NCompass Live for all types of libraries. Public, academic, K-12, corrections, museums, historical societies, archives, et cetera. Really, our only criteria is that it's something to do with libraries. We have Nebraska Library Commission staff that sometimes come on the show to talk about programs and resources and things we're doing here through the commission, but we also bring in guest speakers, and that is what we have today. We're going to learn about making small adjustments for big change from Brenda here, who is from the Liberty Public Library in North Carolina. Brenda Hornsby Heindl did this presentation. I saw it at Association for Rural and Small Libraries conference. Yes, last fall, and invited her to come on and share with even more people about how you can do these kind of cool things at your library. So Brenda, I'm just going to hand it over to you to take away and tell us all about what you've been doing.
Great. Well, thank you. It's such a good opportunity to be here, and I really appreciate the invite. And as you'll learn, I'm an accidental librarian, so I kind of fell into this position and have really just enjoyed finding ways that, you know, on a limited budget, you can do a lot with the community and really getting a community involved and engaged in your library. So that's kind of what I want to share and give everybody hope that it's possible. You know, you can do a lot with a little and really make a big difference in your community and moving forward. So without further ado, we'll get started. Make sure the slides are working. Here we go. There we go. Yep. So I was sort of late to the game of reading Atomic Habits. I'm sure some of you have probably read James Clear's book. But if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it, especially if you are in a role of leadership, to reread it. For me, it wasn't just a good book for me to read as a person individually, but as a beginning leader and not having led a library and led a larger staff before, it was great to think about the topics in Atomic Habits in the sense of what it looks like for leading a library in a community and thinking about having that leadership role. And one of the big take-homes from it is really that small, consistent improvements. So you may not have a lot of money and you may not have a large staff, but small, consistent improvements over time can really prove significant progress. And so I think it really is a great chance to realize that it does seem daunting and it does seem overwhelming if you're feeling like your library is not as involved in the community as it could be. But start making small adjustments and trying new things and working with the community to know what they want to do. And then those tiny changes truly will make a big difference over time. So I worked here at the Liberty Public Library. We're kind of right in the middle of the state. We're about 20 minutes east of Greensboro, North Carolina, if you know where that is, between Greensboro and Chapel Hill. It's usually what I tell people. And our community that is right here is about 2,700 people. It's a small area, but our service population, which is about 5 miles, is a little over 10,000 people. So we do have a pretty big service population, and we do serve 4 different counties. So we're in the northeast corner of our county, and it's the 11th largest state, or excuse me, 11th largest county in 100 counties here in North Carolina. So it is a big county, and for us to touch 3 other counties and be able to serve those counties too, it's a lot of people to have the opportunity to reach out to and serve. So I worked here briefly in 2011 and 12, and that was a really good opportunity for me just to reflect back on that, because the library between 2011 and 12 and when I came back in 2018 really was significantly different. Had a different management staff. They had started to change the library a little bit or move things around. Did a really heavy weed. When I was here in 2011 and 12, I remember books from the 60s and 70s in the children's area. So it was really fascinating to come back and be able to reflect on what it had looked like and start to watch what it was changing. I didn't become branch manager until 2020. And at that time, the current manager then called me in October 2020. So we're in the middle of the pandemic. And I had just had a child in January and was, dealing with a lot. And she said, basically, I'm going to go manage another branch in the system, and I want you to take over this position. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I've never done this before. My background is in history and museums. And so if you had told me when I graduated from my grad program, 10 years prior to that, that I would be leading a library, I would have maybe not laughed, but I'd be like, oh, I don't know about that. But I can't imagine doing anything else. This has been a rewarding position to have. And for better or for worse, I love the community that I work with and really want to see change through the community. And I think that change can really come with a library. So I took the reins, and we have 2 full-time staff people and 3 part-time staff people here at the library. So not a huge staff. I'm one of 2 full-time, and then we have 3 part-time that assist with mostly circulation and some programming. One of the opportunities that I had a chance to participate in, and that really helped me gain better ground for understanding not only library development, but also library leadership, was the opportunity to work with what was then Partners for Education and is now Partners for Rural Impact. At the time, in 2021 to 2023, they were a part of Berea College in Kentucky, which is where I went to school as an undergrad. And that fellowship allowed me to work with 22 other rural libraries across the United States in creating systems for supporting 3rd grade reading. And Partners for Rural Impact, their mission is to foster and support cradle to career for rural communities. And so having that opportunity to work with and create programming that would support our community, and it gave me the chance to really start building a stronger relationship with our elementary school. This is a map showing some of the other libraries that I had the chance to work with. And I would say if you ever have a chance to do any kind of a fellowship or a grant or even a training opportunity where you're getting a chance to meet other rural libraries or other libraries in general, but especially if you're getting a chance to work with people who are experiencing the same thing as yourself, it really is a great chance to realize that you're not by yourself. And while it often can seem like you're, out in the middle of nowhere, and you might be out in the middle of nowhere, that there are other places who have the similar experiences that are willing to share programs. And I've been able to keep pretty strong connections with a number of the fellows that I worked with. It's been really supportive for work that I've done. So out of that fellowship, we created this anchor framework, and Partners for Rural Impact, we're still working on finalizing this as a toolkit for rural libraries. But the emphasis of this anchor framework, kind of like a honeycomb, realizing that all these things around 3rd grade reading really make a huge impact on your community, as well as the children that you're working to help strive and thrive. 2 of those things for me as a library worker really showed me how to dive more into data. And data, I would say, if you ever see a program or something that's really like how to do a data dive in your community, how to pull out data, that's a really great opportunity because it's not only eye-opening for learning what's going on in your community and maybe what it's looked like in the past. What do your third grade reading levels look like? What does your poverty level look like? But that data can also give you a better and stronger support for applying for grants. Having those sometimes hard conversations with funders and supporters and community partners to say, I need help because this is something we're really struggling with. And collaboration. Again, if you have the chance to work with other rural libraries, you have a chance even to work with neighboring communities or counties. Make those collaborations and make those partnerships because it's going to make your work stronger too. So Partners for Rural Impact through the Rural Library Network. So that is one of the kind of arms of Partners for Rural Impact. The Rural Library Network not only does an annual online e-summit, so I highly recommend saving the date because Michael Threets will be joining us this winter for the Rural Library Network presentation online. It's only a half day, but it's a great opportunity to really get excited about work that's being done in rural libraries, but also to reflect on how you can work with yourself and improve your own work as well as working with the community. And so it's a great opportunity to not only meet funders and programmers who might do presentations on things going on across the nation, but then also to presentations by other rural libraries too. So definitely stay in touch with that. Another toolkit that I highly recommend, I had the chance to join in on a grant after this toolkit was developed through the Rural Libraries and Social Wellbeing. This, I think, is really a hidden gem that isn't as well known, and I really want to tout it to be accessed because what it is it's giving you the chance to learn about tools that you're implementing in your community that are not hard to do, and it really is making use of your community to help you do improvements. And so through the toolkits here, I'll talk about some of the work that we did with our library that really made a big impact, but again, not anything that really was significantly expensive, but has made a big difference.
I'll just jump in here. We've actually done here on NCompass Live, we did a couple of shows about that rural toolkit, the rural wellbeing toolkit.
Yeah. I think it's a fantastic. I'll just go back. It's just a fantastic layout too, in that it has videos and it has interviews, and then it has questions and things to be able to work with. You know, to find musicians in your community or people who can bring the programming to you, and find out what the assets are in your community. I was recently on a seminar where we're talking about not focusing on the deficits. You know, we can always focus on the deficits and the things that your community lacks. Mm-hmm. But if you focus on the assets and you find out what gifts your community wants to offer you, ask them what their gifts are and focus on those assets, because by focusing on their assets and getting your community more involved, they will truly make the community stronger by being a partner with the library.
Yeah, so if you want to watch either of those recordings, dig more into this particular project in our show archives, and I'll show you all at the end of the show too. You can just search for well-being, that one word, in our show archives, and you'll find the two recordings of the shows that we did with their presentation slides and everything.
That's great. So one of the toolkits there on that website is to just pull up in front of your building and look at the building. This is what my building looked like when I came in 2020, and it's got a lot of stairs. It didn't at that time have that nice ramp there in front of the Liberty Public Library sign. Had these huge brick arches right in front of the door. The door was not accessible by any kind of mobilized device, barely accessible by strollers. Our couriers could even barely get books in through the front door on their carts. And it's a dark 1966 brick building. It's kind of not exactly fancy and not exactly attractive. And it sits back from the road. So it really is kind of something you would overlook. And it wasn't anything that was saying, hey, I look like an inviting building. And when I pulled up to the curb, it was really, I was well aware of caregivers having a hard time getting in the building, but also people with mobilized devices. even with walkers and other things. We weren't having the foot traffic because people literally couldn't get in our doors. So I decided to, I'll talk a little bit about what I decided physically with the building, but we did have maintenance help us take some of the trees down. We were closed for a little while during the pandemic, so we had some local funding help us create a porch in the lower porch. And then I had a Eagle Scout from the Boy Scouts create raised garden beds. And we redid the gardens to create 2 pollinator gardens in the front of the library. And that really not only gave people the invitation to come to the library, because we do have 24-hour internet access, we gave them tables to sit at, places and spaces to spend time outside the building, as well as inviting them to come inside. And then we did collaborative artwork with the community. We took these tiny little canvases out into the community and we asked them to paint it. And each canvas connected to one another. So you can kind of see how the circles came about. So people followed the outline of that circle. And then I laid them all out on a piece of paper, took a photograph, and made these huge banners through Vistaprint. Vistaprint, I'm pleasantly surprised by how long these banners last. We still have it up on our building, and they're still pretty vivid for 4 years. So, but this was a really fun collaborative work that the not only kids but also adults enjoyed doing, and then appreciated seeing their own work on the outside of our building. So it kind of made a bright highlight you see from the road, and when you pull up, it really is kind of fun and kind of spunky, and gives you a chance to say, well, that looks like an interesting piece of artwork. I want to go look at it. Maybe that's also an interesting building to visit to. This is another collaborative artwork we did. I don't know if I would ever recommend doing bottle cap murals. The collection of the bottle caps was a little much, but the final result was really great. We did some construction I'll talk about inside the building, and so we ended up with these huge wooden panels. And we thought, gee, what would happen if we took these recycled materials and then recycled bottle caps and made these big panels for community to help us make murals out of them. And so it turned out well, but the collection of the bottle caps was a lot. And cleaning the bottle caps was more than I anticipated. So fun project. Not sure I would recommend it in a large scale.
That looks like a lot of bottle caps. Yes, I can imagine.
It is a lot of bottle caps. Yeah, each panel of those, each individual letters is about 2 feet by 3 feet, 3.5 feet. I'm looking at it across the room. So yeah, they're big. But yeah, worth it in the long run, but certainly hard to implement in some ways. But one of our high school classes, like the alumni of a class, gave us some funding to kickstart making tote bags so we could do a fundraiser. So we took the bottle cap mural and created these bags that we're now selling as fundraisers for our programs. And talking a little more about looking at free things to do right in your own space, and thinking about how you can take a look at your space, you know, not only sitting outside, but then look inside your building and is it navigable? Is it able to be accessed by someone with a mobilized device? Or, you know, can you walk through your building easily? And are you creating spaces that people want to come into and spend time in, rather than just coming in, grabbing a book and leaving? And I think altering your space and really taking a look at your space gives you a chance to think about how you can create a space that's not just a grab and go. You know, the association of a library only being about books, when, as we well know, libraries really aren't, that this really can be a space for people to use the resources and find the things that they are needing help with, but being able to come and spend time in those spaces too. So just taking a look and figuring out how can you rearrange your space with what you have. Our current building is about 3,200 square feet, so we're not a huge library, and we pretty much have most of our fixtures probably from the 1960s and 70s. So we are, kind of making do in some ways, but we've had the chance to do some updates and be able to add a little bit of space too. And I say add a little bit of space in that we purposely started looking at our spaces for how could we create specialized spaces mostly for age ranges. So our junior fiction books, which is what this shelving system is, used to be in with picture books. They used to be right next to the picture books, and you kind of hear the kind of upper elementary, junior high kids being like, I don't want to go in the baby room. I don't want to go in the baby room to pick out my books. And there might be a program going on in the baby room, and they didn't feel comfortable. They didn't feel comfortable to go spend time in that room. So we wanted to respect what they wanted and shift their books to where they could access them and be able to have their own space. Unfortunately, we don't have enough space in the building, floor space, to give them, seating and chairs, which is what I would love to do. But we were able to say, hey, I hear you. I'm going to move your books so you don't have to go in the baby room, and then give you, to the right, across from this larger shelf, we started being able to have a particular space for like graphic novels and manga. So that I think has been really exciting for kids of upper elementary and kind of that preteen age, knowing that they can have their own space there in the library. And one of the bigger pushes in relation to that was for young adults. I have a coworker who just does amazing things with kids as well as teens. But she really said, hey, I'm wanting to do these teen programs. We want the teens to come in, kind of like a teen advisory board. And we want them to tell us what do they want to see? What programs can we do for them? What books do they want us to purchase? But then can we give them a space to come hang out? Our community has no community center. We have not a lot of social support systems. We do have social workers here in our library system, which is great. But we don't have places, we don't have a lot of after school programs. We don't have spaces for especially teens to go and spend time. And I think in a rural area, that's really important. For their health, their mental health, but also for them to get the chance to meet other teens. And so we did shift, we kind of used a little bit of floor space, but we wanted to create a teen room and really give them their respectable space to say, hey, we hear you, we see you, we want this space to be yours. This has been a harder space for us to navigate, saying this is only for teens because we have such a small space. I have been to other libraries where they have like stanchions and it says, this space is only for teens. You might see in the kind of lower right corner, we do have a thing on the table that says, we respect the use of the space for teens, but we're not kicking people out because we don't have the table space for the tutors to always be. So to me, it's a little hard to navigate that, but we have had good response from the teens for coming to the library and spending a little more time with us. We also really wanted to alter our children's space, not only to give caregivers the space after story time, because we outgrew the space for story time, but we wanted to give them the space to come and spend time after story time, but also to give children the choice and being able to see what books we have for them. And so we were able to get a little bit of funding for having drawers and giving kids a chance to face out the books and be able to flip through them. They love doing that. The circulation just in the drawered books really went up pretty quickly because the kids could flip through them and really enjoyed doing that, and giving us a chance to face more books out so that kids could see themselves in the books. And that kind of leads up to, it's not an additional cost to think about diversifying your collections. That deep data dive can really give you an idea of ethnic backgrounds of people in your community, asking questions for what languages. We actually just had our county survey done, and we had a response that I had never heard before, but and hadn't had a specific request, but it said, I would appreciate if you had more books in Portuguese. And honestly, I didn't know we had a lot of Portuguese speakers here, so for me that was a really great opportunity to think more about other languages we might want to add other than mostly Spanish that we have in our collection. But I do want to and have very purposely, even before I became branch manager, we really started shifting our collection to be more diverse for reflecting the percentages more of our community. And that kind of goes across the board. So it's not an additional cost to me. It's what I'm doing now, though, is really thinking intentionally for the limited amount of money I have for spending on books, what part of that can I get to better reflect percentages of diversity in our community? And especially in the kids section, we've had caregivers specifically say, thank you for having these books so my child can see themselves in books. And especially for boys, I think that makes a huge difference for seeing characters they can connect to, people who might look like themselves in a book so that they feel like that's something they can pick up and use.
That's, I think, one of the best parts. This is a lot of work and things to do with it. When someone tells you, thank you for doing this and seeing me, and it's just, yeah.
Yeah.
Makes you feel
and
so
it really
good.
does. It is also like on the flip side of that, we are in a space that if you've heard, might not have heard in Nebraska, but 5 miles from us, we are the nation's first Toyota battery plant. So Toyota is building this huge plant. They just opened officially. So we are having an influx of people moving here from all over the country and all over the world. And we had some people coming in, and luckily, coming to get their library cards is great, but they're coming in, somebody was coming in from like, say, DC or Baltimore and more urban areas. And they, one time we were standing in the children's area and they just turned to me and they said, I'm really surprised by how diverse your collection is. And I was like, I don't know whether to be offended, to think that we are in a rural southern community, but there's no reason we shouldn't have diversity to match our community. Does that make sense? Like I'm not, but it was just to me, like they expected it to be the opposite.
They assume a rural area is not going to have that diverse population, citizenship. Yeah. You just assume, and then no, this reflects who you're going to meet now that you've moved here. Yeah.
Right, and I think too, for me, what percentages I work with, like our population is around 22% Black and African American. It's about 22% Hispanic and Latinx. We do have, I think it's like 47% white or Caucasian. But to me, I wanted to break it down into like quarters. I wanted it to be 25, 25, 25, and that sort of 25 of splitting the white and Caucasian is to give me a chance to work with a 25% of, around the world, multicultural, because for some kids in rural areas, they're not necessarily going to get the chance to go around the world. They're not going to get a chance to see languages and people that do look unlike themselves, but I think it is a really great opportunity to expand the horizons and make that intentional purchase to give the children the chance to explore things beyond their own world, especially in rural areas.
Absolutely.
So, I mentioned, of course, that libraries are not just about books. Our system has implemented having different STEAM kits. We were able to add like a yoga kit, ukuleles. We do have a seed library, which is a whole other conversation and a lot harder than I thought it might be, but I still enjoy the process of it and the progress of what it does for the community for inspiring gardening and trying new plants. We do have Legos, and we have a train table and a puzzle exchange. I do not count puzzle pieces. We put a note on it that says, let us know if there's missing pieces. By the time there's like 3, we just take them out for making crafts. But this is a great passive program that mostly I would say are older adults. We're connected to a senior center, but also some of our families come in and they just exchange puzzles back and forth. And it's great to see them get excited about something somebody new brought in and trying something different or giving up like the 1,000-piece puzzles they don't want to do and trying to find something with a little lower pieces. So that's been a really fun passive program. Unfortunately, I haven't figured out really how to take stats off that. I know some libraries have discussed about how to do that, but for me, it's more just a community interaction opportunity and really just getting people in the door to realize that we have more than just books too. And that kind of emphasizes thinking about libraries, to me, especially on that third grade reading level, and relationships with the schools. I want kids to come into our programs and come to our library to know that a library is a comfortable space. And to me, if kids will come and be in a library, and even adults, the more they're familiar with books, the more they're around books, the more likely they are to pick up a book. And I think that's a really good emphasis on rethinking some of your programming and what you're doing so that people are interacting with the library to make the library a comfortable space to be. And one of the things that came out of the pandemic for us was these craft packets. Because we were closed, we were putting information about online programming, that we were creating these craft packets out of basically recycled materials. I'm positive most libraries watching this video have the barn or storage space of donated supplies. We had decades of things hiding in these boxes, and we probably still have things that I haven't quite found in this barn. But we just basically started pillaging them and figuring out what can we make for, 50 plus craft packets to send out into the community and share our information. And this was something from the pandemic that our community literally said, please don't stop doing this. We probably now make anywhere from, not during the summer, 50 to 125 craft packets a month. In the summertime, each month probably 200 or more for each program we're doing. So it's a lot of work, but I have a couple of staff people that really love making these. We have volunteers that help put them together once we make the instructions, and the community really appreciates them. So this is a great opportunity to have that response from the community that they said, please don't stop. Give us a chance to interact with your programs. We can't always be there for the times that you have programs, but we want to do something at home that makes us connect with the library. And our calendar, it's kind of packed. We do a lot. But I would say we also, over the year, especially this last year, really trying to make intentional connections with partners to say, what can you bring to us? So now, we don't see it here on this calendar, but now each month our cooperative extension, the nutritionist there, she comes and she does story time once a month. 4-H comes and does a program usually once a month. So we have community partners that come in to do programming with us so that we're not always the ones doing it. We have a limited staff, and because of our increased foot traffic, it's hard to man the desk too. So we are doing a little better with creating these partners, but also just biting the bullet, because we know that these programs are also bringing in kids that we might not see if we just said, come to the library for a book. Come to the library to come play Nintendo Switch with us. That'll get a different crowd of people out, which is great. Give different topics. We have manga day, and that's just us making ramen and showing manga videos sometimes, and it's great. Really easy, low-key painting programs. And you can see our dinosaur T-Rex party. Next year's CSLP theme is dinosaurs, and you better believe it that I'm bringing the T-Rex party back, because it was great. Yeah. Who doesn't want to have tea with giant inflatable dinosaurs? But I will say, so we really started, once the pandemic restrictions really kind of lifted in around probably 2022, we had gotten a new staff person in 2021, another full-time staff person. We really started intentionally trying to start connecting with the community to say, what do you want to see? Can we do these art programs for you? And I would say probably from 2022 to now, so 3 years about, we have really seen those small things that we were doing behind the scenes and then out in the community have really made a difference. So in January of this year, we had a 32% increase in foot traffic from the previous January. February, we started to see a 40-something%, and then just this past month, we had about a 67% increase in foot traffic. Where am I going to put these people? I have no idea, but it is great to know that what we're doing is really being seen in the community, and it's a really great relationship to have and to watch that. maybe a little bit of cost or planning for replacements, do think about your furnishings. I am somewhat of a larger person, and it drove me crazy that when I came back in 2018, we still had this furniture. We had a few new pieces, but there was still this furniture since I was there in the 2011 and 12 that I really didn't honestly fit very well in. And it had these locked down writing tables that you couldn't remove, you couldn't adjust them. And they just were hard to fit in. And then there were these other like brown chairs you can see by the window that I literally couldn't fit in. And they were also, the wheels didn't lock. So if you were an older adult and you sat in it, it would roll backwards. So to me, it was also like dangerous. So we decided to allocate some of our funding from the year toward getting some newer furniture that is just larger, easier for older adults to get up and down off of. We did have a few with writing tables, but they could shift a little bit. So it gave us a chance to think more about more people using them. They're also able to be wiped down better. Cloths, I don't recommend cloth chairs, because we'll just say the blue chairs were not the prettiest things in the world, and they really did need to go. But these nice black chairs that we found on the right are easier to clean and not necessarily easy to move. That's probably my biggest complaint about them, because I do move them around for book club. But for what they are, it works, and gave us a chance to really think intentionally about those spaces. You know, are our aisles at least, 36 inches so that a wheelchair or a mobilized device can fit down? Are all our pathways accessible, and can people maneuver around our furniture? And just thinking outside of yourself and your box, outside of the box at all, like just we're asking people with different abilities to come into your building and say, what can we do better? How can this work better for you? So we altered a few places with a little bit of furniture that wasn't expensive. This tabletop, high top table on the right facing the window that we put into this breezeway space that previously on the left you can see has this like line of chairs that when people were sitting there, their legs were out in the aisle, people couldn't walk through it. And we shifted our library to be what we call a no shush library. So I want us to come in, I tell them they can't scream and screech, they can do that outside. I want them to be comfortable and have fun. Sometimes the library's loud, but this breeze that gives us the space to close both doors if somebody needs this quiet space. And the high top table there, I think I found it at Walmart.com, and it really wasn't that expensive, and it has a charging plug on the top. So dual hunting, you might be able to find some pretty cheap designs that have held up pretty decently and have really served the purpose that we needed for the building. One of my other finds, it came out of the pandemic request for pickups. We were using like old newspaper boxes with the lids that like brush your hand, and people were just asking, can we pick up later? Do we have to come when you're open? How can we do pickups, and how can we access the craft packets? So can you have the craft packets outside? And so I was starting to do some hunting. We didn't have it in our budget for these, $4,000 to $10,000 outside lockers, which are great. Someday we'd love to have those. But what I did find were these lockers where they have a digital keypad and a clear door, so we can reset the digital keypad to the PIN number for the library card, and they can come and pick up things 24 hours a day. And so to me, it was a small investment for a good return for what we needed and what people were asking us for.
That's been thing. Actually, we had quite a few libraries that have done things like that. We gave grant money to grants that were as a result of the pandemic, of course, but just ongoing libraries are doing those outside lockers.
Yeah. And I think the only, probably the only downfall of that locker system is that it does need to be kind of under an awning. They have holes in the top. I mean, I guess you could figure out how to adjust it if you had to have it outside. So it does kind of need an under space, but it's really held up well, and it's really served its purpose for the small adjustment small investment compared to the larger systems that are just out of our price range right now. Another thing that came out of the pandemic was that we worked with our local food pantry to create snack stacks. And this is something that we've continued doing. And the snack stack idea is that we're creating little bags of materials and non-perishable items that we say are a snack for some and a meal for others, kind of a protein-heavy snack that we gear toward kids and families, making sure that if kids are hungry, they can't focus on learning how to read. So we want to make sure that they have a snack, and we do allow food in the library, drinks with lids on them. So we do have that, but this is a great program that we've continued doing. We've been able to connect with a statewide food pantry now. I'm actually going tomorrow to pick up our first donated load of materials to go toward this program. And that's been a really great opportunity to serve our community in a different way and show our community that we're here, we hear about what their needs are and trying to meet their needs, supporting literacy in other ways, if that makes sense. So we do have what's often called a blessing box or a little free pantry on the porch. And that's been a little harder to keep up with. We do rely on local donations for that. And it is empty often. So it's harder to kind of keep up with the need and the demand. We do have a local food pantry, but it does have limited open hours. But we're just doing the best we can and really trying to show our community that we hear what their needs are, and we're trying to do that, and then trying to find partners to help us support those things too.
Mm-hmm. I've seen some libraries and communities where it's a combination, little free pantry and little free library, all in one box.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, I think it's a great opportunity too to talk to kids about. A lot of our kid volunteers or teen volunteers help us put snack stacks together, and I know I've had conversations with them about, why is this necessary? And it's, having that conversation about that everybody doesn't know where their next meal comes from. And so really trying to raise awareness in your community about insecurity and that it exists. And some people are really struggling with it. And so giving people the opportunity to think about helping others too. I'll try to run through, I see that we're I wanted to leave some time for questions, so I'll try to run through the next couple slides, but
yeah, sure. I'll just remind everyone who's here, if you have any questions, type into the questions section, you go to webinar interface, and we'll grab all your questions. I won't miss anything before we wrap up today. We'll stick around as long as we need to answer anyone's questions or share anyone's comments.
So I feel like I keep saying it over and over again, but the pandemic did teach us to get outside of our walls. We weren't able to do inside programming for a while. When we were doing the community conversations where we were taking the canvases out and having people paint with us, we were doing that at the parks. We try and participate in most of the festivals at the school as well as downtown. Any kind of outreach we can do that's kind of more local and not kind of getting into the arena of our other branches in the county. We usually try to have a craft, and then we're also giving away books. So we do fundraising. We also allocate part of our programming budget so that we buy books to give away to help kids create local or create their own personal libraries, and making sure that, taking away that stigma of having to return library books. We don't have fines anymore, so that's something that people still don't know about necessarily, but that stigma, the stigma of, that challenge of thinking, if I don't return it, I'm going to get punished. I wanted to break that stigma and encourage people to just take a book. You don't have to bring it back to us. Like, just enjoy that book, pass it on, or build your library and come visit us when you can. We also really get into the schools. We just recently spent 2 days with every class on the campus to talk about summer reading. And we got a grant that will be going out to the school and taking books for the students to take home to keep for the summertime. So good opportunities are out there, but then just showing up to read to the kindergarten class, showing up to show yourself to the kids and know that the library is going to be a fun place to go. These are fun people and nice people. We've been in downtown festivals, and my colleague overheard someone saying, look, it's the library staff. They're nice. And that makes a big difference. It makes a big difference to be identified as a welcoming space and for people to see you outside of the building that you're in. So not expecting people to come to you. You're going to go out and meet with the people. I go out to the grocery store and the kids see me, and, it's kind of like seeing a teacher outside of the school, but they're, it's the library lady. They might not know my name, but it's the library lady, and that's what I need. They know I can be a smiling face to come and visit. And talking more about those community partnerships, asking your community what can you contribute to the programs we're doing. So my colleague started a program last year, and we did it again this year with Dia de los Niños and Dia de los Libros, Day of the Child and Day of the Book, for doing a multicultural festival. So it's a multicultural festival where we ask community members who may be from different countries, or they may be studying a country as a homeschool group. They came and shared food or snacks or treats from different countries around the world. And this year we were able to get some Humanities Council funding to help us have a musician come to share about Central American music. And it's been a really fun opportunity to not only get the community involved to share their cultures, but then have our community members come out and see what cultures make up our community too. Mm-hmm. And this is a really fun one. On the left is one of the libraries that I worked with in the Rural Library Fellowship. They took the idea of what I do with we have a partnership for children in our county, and each Christmas parade, we fill wagons full of books and hand them out during the parade. So on the left, my friend from the fellowship took that idea, and they took a go-kart out and filled up the back of it and handed out books too. So most of the time, not only are we making a booth to give away books, but then often, if there's a parade, we'll be in it and we'll hand out books along the parade. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but I highly recommend it because it is a lot of fun. And again, just kind of that emphasis of bringing home the partners you can find. This is a partnership. I believe this is a national program. Eco Explore is giving kids and families the opportunity to take pictures, and then they upload for naturalists to see what things are growing in that particular area. These are often hosted by either nature centers, or for us, our local science center, and that then those science centers or places come and they'll do programming for you because you are an Eco Explore space. So that's a really good opportunity. And also just finding out what your cooperative extensions can do. Oftentimes they can come and do a canning class. They can come and talk about, how to prepare for growing gardens. We have one of our other county extensions right now is doing a gardening series, and they're master gardeners who are required to teach classes and do programming are coming to do the programs for us. So really great to kind of just reach out and see what's possible. And last year, we got an award for the Best Large Business of the Year from our Chamber of Commerce because people were really paying attention to the opportunities we were giving our community for programming, for things to do, spaces to be, and places to go. So that was a really great recognition to just see that our community is watching, and they do realize that we're really working hard. I did just want to share. Go ahead.
No, I just said nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was great. I did just want to share that it is a little bit of cost, but if you can make any changes for accessibility, do the best you can because it really makes a difference. When I walked in this door as branch manager, I said the first thing we're doing is taking down those arches, and then we're going to replace the doors and we're going to make them push button accessible. And that has made a world of difference for not only just strollers and caregivers to come in the building, but people of all abilities to come and use our building. And we did take down some walls, and we made ADA accessible bathrooms. So those changes in your building really make a difference to signal to your community that you're doing the best you can with what you have. We have a small space, but we want to make changes so that people can spend more time with us. And then I'm happy to share, as my kind of last slide, that we were able to get some funding, seed money, to do the first phase of looking at what a 20,000 square foot building could look like. down the road. And we also got a grant through the American Library Association for the library's transferring communities to look specifically at what it could look like to have a space within this library for adults and children with disabilities. Not like a closed sensory room. This will be an open space so that adults and children with disabilities in groups. So we have actually an adult group home here with adults with disabilities to be able to let them have a space to come and spend time. That we've heard from community members with children and adults they care for with disabilities that they didn't feel comfortable bringing their people to the library because their people experience the library differently. So we want to create a space that everyone can experience the library and feel comfortable. And what does that look like? We don't know yet. If you know or make recommendations of places to go see and visit or talk to, I would love that input. But this is a great opportunity for us to really galvanize the community and bring what we need change for having a community center and a library kind of as one building.
Nice. Yeah, I always promote that grant when it comes up from ALA. They always do regular annual some sort of the library's transforming specifically for rural and small libraries. So highly recommend that as a grant.
I do highly recommend that. We've had a chance to have several rounds of that, and you know, a couple of the times, like, because they ask you to have these community conversations, it gives us a chance to realize that it's hard to get people in to come talk to us. So it really does give us a chance, like for this round of the grant, I'm going out and I'm buying people lunch because I can identify a person or they can come to us and I can say, hey, I'll come to you because it might be hard to expect you to come to my building. So we're really trying to make an effort to do one-on-one and then have some group conversations, but maybe not off the library. So.
Yeah.
But that is kind of my presentation, and then if anybody has any questions, I'd love to chat if you have time or take any input.
Yeah, so go ahead and just leave that slide up right there for now. We'll leave that up. If anybody does have any questions you want to ask, type into that question section. And I will mention, because someone did ask earlier, I just didn't get to this yet. Yes, the slides will be available afterwards with the recording. Brendan's going to send me either a PDF or something to that, and we'll post it. It'll be put up along with the show recording. So all of the resources you mentioned, the links to different websites and about the programs and whatnot, you'll have access to all of that when the recording goes up. I did want to mention, you mentioned a bit about the being accessible to people like in with mobile devices or like in wheelchairs and whatnot, like that, assistive devices and whatnot, and that is something important about the ADA requirements. You know, as a public building entity, public libraries do need to be in compliance with the American with Disabilities Act, the ADA, up into what they you know, for what you can do. Like you mentioned, it's a small space. There's only so much that you can do, but there is the minimum that you need to at least, you know, work towards it at least.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you can use the argument that things are grandfathered. I mean, our building was built in 1966, so the bathroom doors that we ended up replacing were about like 28 inches. It was not even like, it was a rough space to get into, whether or not you know, had a device. And, you know, it also had no changing tables and it had no places. It wasn't inviting for caregivers of any kind to spend time. So now we have two very large bathrooms, both with changing tables. And it really does make a difference. It makes a difference to just make that signal. You know, it's kind of that idea of pulling up. It's been a challenge to try and have hand railing. That's been something we've for several years now, hand railing on that ramp. But we didn't have a ramp before, and so when you pulled up, there wasn't anything, and so it was like, how do I can't even get up there. So really trying to make better signals of the changes you are trying to make so that everybody can be in the library.
Yeah, and it just shows, like you said, that you are welcoming, inviting, and you are looking at your community and caring about them and knowing that, yes, you're going to need this. And whether, you know, you've had someone who's tried to get in and couldn't, or you're just saying, you know what, just in case. You never
Sure.
know when someone, you know, some kid falls in sports and breaks their leg and now they're in a wheelchair for a little bit. I mean, those kind of temporary situations come up too. And it's just always good to be, ahead of the game there a little bit. Yeah. We do have a question about collecting the data, like the demographic data, like knowing what's going on. You talked about knowing or not knowing the Portuguese, that there are people who are speaking Portuguese in the community. How have you worked on looking for more of that kind of concrete numbers to present to someone in authority, someone to give you money, grants, whatever, recommendations for that, finding that kind of information?
And I would say that often if you have foundations that work in your county or even in your region, they're often doing annual reports. And so we do have a foundation here that does pretty deep dives in relation to like poverty and need for the county overall. And then there's also other databases and things to use for looking specifically at poverty levels and food relationships. You might be able to work with the food pantries to better understand that. And it's really kind of creating those partnerships with the school or with your county systems in order to see what they're seeing. Sometimes it might be hard to access those materials, but just to kind of have those conversations about like, hey, this could be really helpful to me. Do you have any information that I can access in order to get better resources for the people that we're reaching out to? Right. So it is kind of, dependent on sometimes the state for what things you might access to, but also, starting with looking at county foundations is really helpful.
Yeah, because I know some small communities, they're just like you were saying, you don't have a lot of time, you're a small library, small staff. How can I possibly dig up all this data? And you don't have to do it yourself. Someone else has probably done it. Yeah, look for your community may have done a study recently or done a community survey already. So you don't have to necessarily do the work of saying we're going to put out put together a survey or a questionnaire to ask what everyone wants in the community. See what's already been done. Don't reinvent the wheel. Sure. Yeah.
And two, like diving back to what people have done in the past. So for me, our county library system did do an analysis of all the buildings back in 2014. And in 2014, our building was considered 4,000 square feet short of what we needed for the service population then. So my argument for the seed money for finding out what a 20,000 square foot building could look like was that, we're already short, and our service population that we should be serving now, our state library system has a breakdown of your service population and how much square footage your library building should be in relation to that. And so our current service population, we should have about 10,000 square feet now. And so even, and I keep saying like the 20,000 square foot building is great. By the time we probably actually get it fundraised and built, we might also then be at capacity. So, it's like, it's going to be great and we might have to build another one at some point. But, for me, it's
people keep moving into the community. Oh no.
Well, that's the reality of we're in the middle of right in between two huge factories that are opening. So the reality is that our population is going to surge. And, I was looking at the area where the first Toyota plant was back in 1986. But every decade since it opened, they've added 10,000 people to their area. So it's a lot. And I imagine we will see that change here over the next couple of decades. So just trying to think ahead to, again, signal to your community that you're thinking about them, that you're thinking ahead and you're really trying to do the best you can with what you have, but also realize that we're aware of the deficits we have, but we're also trying to think of ways in which to use assets to improve that.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. I don't see any other desperate questions that have come in. That's fine. There is Brenda's contact info is available there on the slides. So if you do have any other questions you want to ask her later that you come up with, do go ahead and reach out to her. All right, so thank you so much, Brenda. This was great. So many great ideas and resources and things that I've now followed groups, obviously the one that I did know about, the well-being one, but other rural area organizations and projects out there.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm
Well,
going
thank
to,
you.
yeah, my presenter control my screen. So yeah, thank you so much for being with us here today, Brenda. This is great. And we do have, wait, where'd it go? Thank yous coming through. Oh, what is this? Someone's saying, thank you. We are getting a lift this year and currently rearranging the library to allow for wheelchair access. Great ideas in this presentation. Awesome. Glad to hear it. And other thank yous coming through in the chat from other libraries, other attendees. Nice. All right. So yes, thank you so much, Brenda. I'm so glad we could get you on the show today.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and so that is wraps up for today's show. As I said, it's being recorded and will be available on our show archives. This is our main NCompass Live page. If you use whatever is your search engine of choice and type in the name of our show, NCompass Live, we're the only thing called that on the internet so far. You'll find our page and you'll find our archive page. These are upcoming shows for the next couple of months. But then our show archives are down here. Most recent one is at the top. Today's show will be posted there by the end of the day tomorrow, along with a link to this link to the YouTube recording and the slides. Everyone who attended today's show and registered for today's show will get an email from me letting you know when it's available. We also push out to our Facebook page. We have a Facebook page for the show. If you'd like to use Facebook, give us a like. We post reminders. Here's a reminder to log into today's show, announcements when about our presenters, and then when the recordings are available, we also post here as well. We use a little abbreviated hashtag NCompLive on any of our posts that we put out here on the Library Commission's social media. It also, the Library Commission itself also has its own Facebook page and Instagram, etc. So you can follow us out there if you want to. I mentioned that we had done presentations about the social well-being, and yeah, you see there I just typed in well-being, and we did a show in 2020 and 2021 when they were first getting started with the program, and then like a little over a year later when it was full grown. So if you want to learn more about that rural libraries and social well-being project, we've got our recording and slides available there. And I will, while we're also here on the show archives, you can search the full show archives or just the most recent 12 months if you want something just very current. That is because this is our full show archives, and I'm not going to scroll all the way down. As you can see, this is a giant list. This is why we have a search feature. But it is every show that we've done since NCompass Live premiered in January 2009. So 2025 is the 17th year of our show. Oh my gosh. But we do have an original broadcast date on all of these shows. So just do pay attention to that original date whenever you watch anything. Many of our shows will be fine to watch, stand the test of time, be good, useful information, but some things will become old and outdated. Resources may change drastically, might not exist anymore. People are going to work at different places than when they presented to us. Links might be broken, who knows? So just pay attention. But this is something libraries do. We keep things for historical purposes, and as long as we have a place to host all of our show recordings, which right now is the Library Commission's YouTube account, we'll just keep them all up for you, for anyone to watch as you want to. All right, so that wraps it up for today's show. Next week, I hope you join us next week when it is the last Wednesday of the month, so it is Pretty Sweet Tech Day. You'll see here we've got Pretty Sweet Tech May 28th, Pretty Sweet Tech June 25th. The last Wednesday of the month, usually, Amanda Sweet, our technology innovation librarian, joins us and to talk about something tech related. We have shows about technology other times of the month too, but you can always depend on Amanda being there unless she's taken a month off here or there to talk about technology. And next week she's going to be sharing about libraries in technology innovation ecosystems. So if you want to understand what that means and figure that out, join us and join Amanda next week on the show. All right, that is everything for today. Got a few more thank yous coming through, Brenda. Awesome. So thank you everyone for being with us. Good to see you, Brenda, and hopefully we'll see you all on a future episode of NCompass Live. Bye-bye.